ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text number 38. We'll chant the Sanskrit and the translations in unison. Kachino bhaya vibrashtash chinnabhram iva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanapati. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud, with no position in any sphere? Text 39. Etan me sangshayang Krishna chitum arhasya sheshataha tvad anya sangshayasya chitta na hyupapadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Text 40. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kashchid Durgatim Tata Gachchati. The Blessed Lord said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Text 41. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushritva shashvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yogo brashto vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Text 42. Athava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam ethadhi durlabha taram loke janma yad idrisham. Or he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is rare in this world. Text 43. Tatra tam buddhisam yogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate cha tato bhuya samsiddho kuru nandana. On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Text 44. Purva bhyasen atinaiva riyate hyavashopi saha jigyasur api yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attached to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist, striving for yoga, stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Text 45. Prayatnadyatamaanastu yogi sangshuddha kilbishaha aneka janma samsiddhas tato yati param gatim. But when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately, after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. Text 46. Tapas vibhyo diko yogi jnanibhyo pi matodikaha karmibhyaschadiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Text 47. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mang same yuktatamo mataha. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. And we'll just read the first text of chapter 7. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Yasakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Madashayaha Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Jyan Yasi Tachtrinu. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Beautiful. So let's hear from text 38, translation. Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So this is connected with the previous verse. So I'll read text 37. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? And text 38. Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud, with no position in any sphere? Purport. There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence. Therefore, they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to the higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. He is like a riven cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmana Pati is the path of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Lord Sri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma realization takes many, many births. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Therefore, the supermost of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness, the direct method. Text 39. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Purport. Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that all living entities exist individually in the past, that they exist now in the future, and that they continue to retain individual identity in the future, even after liberation from material entanglement. So he has already cleared up the question of the future of the individual living entity. Now Arjuna wants to know of the future of the unsuccessful transcendentalist. No one is equal to or above Krishna, and certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of material nature cannot equal him. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts, because he knows past, present, and future perfectly, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna-conscious devotees alone can know what is what. So, Maharaj, if you would like to share anything. Okay. So, we have some fears kind of coming out from Arjuna. He's afraid that if he takes to the path of spiritual life and doesn't reach full perfection, then am I just going to be out of a, boat? Do I just lose both games? So this is the type of a calculating mentality, which is natural, And actually, people everywhere are always calculating to achieve the highest, pleasure that they can according to their intelligence, So there's, in one sense, the pursuit of happiness is not condemned, right? Actually, Krishna consciousness, we never hear Prabhupada tell you, don't enjoy. We never hear Krishna tell you, don't be happy. Rather the opposite. Chant and be happy, right? Do the kirtan and be happy. Take prasadam and be happy. See the beautiful forms of their lordships in the temple and be happy. Do some service and be happy. So enjoyment is being encouraged. But this is what's interesting, is that in this 6th chapter, if you read this small book, Perfection of Yoga, amazing. amazing. These small books, the philosophy is given in such a way, it's just very tasty. So, in this Perfection of Yoga, Prabhupada is discussing how this yoga system, which was being discussed, right, in the 6th chapter, Arjuna says, for me, it's not going to be possible. You know? He's recommending, okay, let's look at some of the things. So Arjuna declares that the system will not be possible for him in text 33. So check out that reference. Text 33, Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impracticable and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. So now let's see which was that system which Krishna has summarized. So let's look back. He's talking about the yogi who sees the true equality of all beings. And as Rishi Kumar was saying, that's that we are all, every living being is at the essence an individual spiritual entity who is eternally individual and is actually one of Krishna's servants. But they are transmigrating in these different bodies. And at the current stage, I see them in one of those bodies out of many, many, many that they have been traveling in. But their real identity, or the active principle of that being, is actually spiritual. Just like my true self, I am actually spiritual, and I am actually the active principle of this body. So that's that true vision. So Krishna ends it with that. He says, knows that I and the super soul within all creatures are one. Now, this is actually saying that Krishna is actually that Lord within the heart of everyone. So now let's see what else he says prior. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he lost to me. So these 3 verses were really about vision and knowledge. A true yogi observes me in all beings, also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. And as we were hearing, that is attained when the eyes are anointed with love for God. Then, let's see here. Steady in the self, being freed from material contamination, right? So this is after becoming free from material contamination, then we can start to see the Lord everywhere. So let's see how Krishna brought us to that point a little bit before 27. Then he says, okay, a yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness. By virtue of his identity with Brahman, he is liberated, his mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he's free from sin. So that means that he's on the spiritual platform. He's not identifying with his body, right? He becomes fixed on Krishna. So that fixedness on Krishna, that is a high stage. Now, before, from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Right, so we have to bring back the mind. There's no question of being fixed on Krishna when the mind has so many other fixations. Right? So now let's see how Krishna recommends in this 6th chapter how to actually achieve that fixation on Krishna, on himself. He says, gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence. Very interesting. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. All right, so here we have the mental culture of Krishna consciousness. we're thinking of spiritual topics. We're thinking of the active principle of this body, or we're thinking of the soul. And the soul of the soul, or the super soul, is Krishna. So we have to have full conviction, right? We have to be situated in trance. What is that trance? That trance is essentially means that we're completely absorbed in service by means of intelligence. If I know that I'm Krishna's servant, if I do anything else but Krishna's service, then it's actually incongruent with, or disharmonious with, my real nature, right? So that's what it means to be through intelligence. Intelligence means that I have the ability to discriminate. So then I see, oh, these types of activities are not pleasing to Krishna. And since I'm Krishna's servant, and I'm by definition meant to serve him, which means to render him, to please him, right? Favorable. Rupa Goswami describes that bhakti yoga means to render some favorable service to the Lord. What is that favorable service? It's like if you have a friend and he says, hey, I don't want you to, try to tickle me. It makes me feel strange. But then you want to do it anyway. Then, it's not favorable. At a certain point, if you have a certain level of relationship, right? When you're friends, then you can do that type of thing. Just like Krishna and Arjuna, they were disagreeing with each other at the beginning of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was saying, hey, I don't want to fight. And Krishna was saying, I already signed up as your charioteer. The whole thing is going to happen now. What are you talking about? And he gives him so many reasons. Anyway, so when you're a friend, you can have, there can be this type of interaction where you purposely do something which is displeasing to somebody, and actually it's favorable for the relationship. That's interesting. Apparently, you do something contrary. Anyway, on the platform that we approach Krishna at, we approach as servant to master. That's our training. That's really important. If we want to enter into the more intimate relationships with Krishna, how can we go there? How can we jump there without developing a servant attitude? Right? You've been studying Nectar Devotion, right? Nectar Devotion describes 5 different rasas, or mellows, or tastes, or flavors of devotional service or relationships. So the first one is neutrality. It means we just appreciate God, Krishna. We appreciate Krishna, right? Then we start to serve him, right? Then there can be friendship. Then there can be a type of a parental ownership I take. I take a protective role over my Krishna. Of course, my Krishna is also there and the others as well. But Krishna decides to become subordinate rather than equal or superior, right? Or an object of worship. And the 5th one includes all those other ones and is a type of a conjugal or a romantic. That's how Prabhupada would use conjugal, that word. I never heard of it. But it means an intimacy which is, it's like love. So I was saying that favorable. Devotional service has to be favorable, meaning that Krishna prefers that. So then, by intelligence, right, there's certain things which Krishna doesn't like. If I do those in the name of service, right, if I'm ignorant and I'm innocent, Krishna's so kind. He takes the juicy part out of that. Says, oh, his desire to please me, I like that. Right? He takes that, we get eternal credit for that. But at the same time, like Kamsa was this demon, so powerful demon, it's unbelievable. He was so powerful, and he was Krishna's uncle, right, Prabhu? So Krishna's uncle is actually this most powerful demon, and he was told that his sister's 8th child would kill him. And then all he does is think about Krishna. But the acharyas say this type of Krishna consciousness was not favorable because it can't exactly be called bhakti yoga, because he was always thinking in an envious way about Krishna, wanting to destroy Krishna, actually, to destroy Vishnu. And what's amazing is that Krishna gave him some mercy too, special mercy. So this is what it means, intelligence. So we have to discriminate, right? So, with full conviction, step by step, this is nice, step by step, with full conviction, become situated in trance by means of intelligence. Fixed on the mind should be fixed on the self alone. But who can fix their mind? This is what Arjuna is actually arguing, right? So then let's see what else he said here. One should engage in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Right? So who can do this? Undeviated determination and faith, abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego. I think I'm this body. So there's so many material desires. That's why Prabhupada actually describes that that's the main problem. This is the source of all my suffering. The source of all my suffering is that I think I'm this body. Why am I always angry? I'm always angry because I'm always lusty, right? Why can't I have any friends? Why can't I experience love? Because I'm always angry, I'm always wrathful, envious. Why am I always wrathful and envious and angry? Because I'm always lusty. Why am I always lusty? Right? Because I'm misidentifying with my body. And I'm actually I think I'm this body, and I'm always trying to enjoy through these senses. Like that. So it's a big problem, but this is what this whole 6 chapter is all about. It's saying, how do you do it easily? How do you do it right away? Right? So we are going backwards through the troublesome route that Krishna has outlined, which is actually a process which was practiced in the Satya Yuga. This dhyana, or this what Prabhupada calls here Sankhya Yoga, this meditation system, mechanical system of controlling the mind, controlling the breath and everything like that, the posture and everything. It's interesting because if it's favorable for Krishna consciousness, means if it's favorable for serving Krishna, I can accept it. But there's also some weeds in the heart. These weeds have to be plucked. One of these weeds is the attraction for the mystic yoga system. Like the mystical side, which can be present devoid of love for Krishna or service attitude. Right? So sometimes we are chanting Hare Krishna and there's these weeds that come up in the heart and we have to pluck them out, which are all these things besides pure devotional service. And how do we know what pure devotional service is? Just keep looking to Prabhupada. Keep looking to the Shastras. Keep looking to the Shikshashtakam. Right? we keep our His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj has I heard a thing. He said the fourth verse of the Shikshashtaka is like the North Star for the devotees. What does it say? Na janam, na dhanam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kame, mama janmani janmanishware, bhavatad bhaktir ahaituki tvai. I don't want followers. I don't want wealth. I don't want to enjoy beautiful women. Actually, I don't want any material desires. I don't want anything material. I'll take birth after birth. It means I don't even want to get out of this material world if I can't serve you. Basically, he says, I'll take birth after birth even. I don't even want liberation. I don't want to lose my personal identity even. That means from the lowest, the base of the base, to the most spiritual thing besides service to Krishna. I don't want any of it. I just want service to you, which is causeless. It's a gift. Causeless devotional service. I actually want pure devotional service, which is the highest gift, matchless gift. Nothing compares to the gift of serving Krishna. That's the version of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the acharyas. So this is like the North Star. It can be guided by this. All I want is service. That's it. So this is where Krishna and Arjuna are going together. Through this philosophical conversation, they're taking us there to that pure devotional platform. And we'll hear about that more explicitly in the later chapters. Specifically, chapter 9 comes up, and then it's boom, 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 again and again. You know, different comments about the pure devotees, always chanting about Krishna, right? So many wonderful statements there. So let's see here. What else is there? Why does Arjuna say it's too difficult? Right? So he says it's too difficult because, right, this samadhi. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This, indeed, is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So one before that, a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities to become situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. So then, right, we're going backwards. Kind of a different way to look at it, but we're trying to understand why Arjuna said, it's too difficult for me. He who is tempered in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, recreation, mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much, does not sleep enough. Thus, practicing control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attains to the kingdom of God, the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Now, on this point, actually, if you realize there may be certain natures, right? And Prabhupada discusses that when you close your eyes, right, then you don't see the sense objects. But the mind plays a movie in your mind, doesn't it? Every time I close my eyes, I see so many visions, so many images. My mind is filled with images. It's complete, you know? And then those images, there's flavors and there's sound, there's touch and there's taste. They're all there in the like in the reservoir of my mind. So I realize when I close my mind, actually I'm just going to another place. I may not be seeing what's in front of me, but because my mind has so many impressions on it, then I'm actually just going there with all those things. Right? And then I'm going there and I'm unattentive to my chanting, and then I fall asleep. Oh, this is big trouble. Right? Big trouble. So if you do use this technique, can be pretty good. Is you look at the nose. So you remove the sense object. I can't even see anything except for my nose and this mic. But I'm also not asleep. I'm also not closing my eyes, right? So that can be favorable to your japa. But it's not like I can actually control my mind alone with sitting straight and staring at my nose. Does that make sense? We have to add Krishna factor there. We have to make it spiritualized by service, or else it's not going to work. And we were doing that. Many of us. We were trying that. I'll stare at the candle light or the lamp, or I'll put a dark room, or whatever we were doing. We were having so much fun doing that, trying to figure it out, right? But it didn't work. And then as soon as Krishna, Hare Krishna mantra, oh, now I'm getting something back. It's nourishing me. It's filling me somehow. And the more we put in, the more we get out. So keep going. It's going to work. That's what Prabhupada has full faith, he tells us. He has full faith in the Maha Mantra. Full faith in the holy name. He says, I don't have any devotion and I don't have any knowledge, but I have full faith in the holy name. Right? And we're hoping to be Prabhupada Nugas. So we want to follow in his footsteps. Okay. I don't, if Prabhupada doesn't have knowledge and he doesn't have devotion, I don't have squat. But he has faith in the holy name. And such a person who has faith in the holy name, he can give faith in the holy name. You know? So we want to associate with Prabhupada, we'll become faithful to the holy name. We'll have faith in the name of Krishna. Right? And that faith, that's what we need. Right? So let's check it out here a little bit more. Oh, also another point. Completely free from sex life? Without service, how is it possible? Without service, how is it possible? You know? There's got to be something tastier. There's got to be something better. You know? Gymnastics doesn't make me not want to engage in sex life. Actually, gymnastics makes me want to do it more. Is it true? Or is it just me? You know? Then I'm thinking, I look good. I look good. So then, what is the thing? I look good means I'm thinking I'm this body, which is now have some form and tone and shape and odor, aroma. You know? Then I start to change my mannerisms. I want to walk a certain way and kind of do a little something, you know, I put a little flair on. Anyway, so this is why we can see. If you're very intelligent or if you're thoughtful, you can see there may be a weed there, maybe a tendency there for something which is actually one of my weak points, you know? So therefore, when it comes to devotional service, Prabhupada doesn't mess around, you know? It's a simple program. It's all focused on serving Krishna as he wants to be served, right? So, you know, we just have to watch these types of things. And because if Arjuna couldn't do these things for complete perfection, how can we do it? That's what's discussed in POY, Perfection of Yoga. It's a wonderful little book. It's just so powerful. I mean, you just don't expect it, but it just, It's just a beautiful essay, you know? It's a beautiful presentation. So, we're not as qualified as Arjuna. He was trained in the forest, did so many austerities. He was like amazing warrior, amazing character. Think about this. Completely free from sex life. Okay. On this point, Arjuna went to the heavenly planets, and his father is actually Indra. This is cool. His mother Kunti is Krishna's mother. I mean Arjuna's mother, Krishna's aunt. Arjuna's mother is Kunti, and they're called the Pandavas. Interesting. If they're called the Pandavas, why is Arjuna's dad Indra? Shouldn't it be Pandu, Dhritarashtra's brother? Right? So that's a whole thing. It'll make more sense. The Mahabharata is kind of hairy. So, or maybe shaved. So, whenever you think about this, then Kunti was given a blessing so that she could call a demigod and have a child with the demigod. So she used that on her husband's permission to have the 5 Pandavas because he wasn't able to engage in sex life because of a curse that he had gotten. So Arjuna's father was Indra. So somehow he got there. He had many adventures all around the universe, but he went to the planet Indra, Indraloka, heavenly planets, and there they have what's called, what do they call it? Society women or prostitutes. But these prostitutes are high class, very pious people. So this is a strange thing because here they're not pious. You know, neither are their buyers, right? But in the heavenly planets, both are pious. Pious means good-hearted. It means they want to actually be pure, clean, sanctified, do things as God wills them to be done. So he wills that. There's some souls, they want material enjoyment, and he sanctions that, I should say. He sanctions that some souls serve him a little bit and also enjoy material life in a very pure way. So anyway, Indra has his society woman, Urvashi, and Indra wanted Arjuna to have some enjoyment with Urvashi. And Arjuna is so pure that he says, he doesn't even look at her. And he says, no, you're my mother. You're basically like my mother because Indra is my father. How can I, unite with you? And actually he got cursed for that because she didn't like that because she wanted to be with Arjuna. She said, no, those types of rules, they don't apply here. We get to do this type of thing. And Arjuna was not going to fold on that, and he got cursed to be a eunuch, which means that he basically lost his manhood for a year's time. So, if Arjuna says that this practice or this process of yoga, including becoming completely free from sex life, if it's not possible for him, if he says it's impractical and unendurable, how can we expect? How can we expect? We're like hogs and dogs. We don't care. No discrimination. I don't care if it looks like this, great. So anyway, that's one example of how elevated Arjuna is despite his qualifications to perform this yoga system as described in the 6th chapter, he still says it's unendurable and impractical. Now, this whole thing was spurred by this topic, which is today's verse, which is that Arjuna is saying, right, if I try to do this, right, if I try to do this anyway, then, Arjuna says it's difficult. And Krishna says, yes, it is difficult, but you can do it if you practice and you're detached. And you have to strive by right means. So then Arjuna has another doubt, and he says, what if I try? Right? What if I try and I don't make it? What will happen to me? Do I just lose everything? And then Arjuna gets the words from Krishna where he says, you don't lose any spiritual progress. You don't lose any spiritual progress, so don't worry about that. And actually in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni is discussing with Vyasadeva, and he says, if you give up everything, taktva sadharmam, there's this whole thing, beautiful verse, famous verse where he says, if somebody joins the path of transcendence and because they're immature, they go back to material life. They do some other stuff, not serving Krishna. Then, right? Then that's better than somebody who's perfectly executing their duties without serving Krishna. And you don't lose any progress. And then in the text after that, he says, you never forget Krishna. Once you started serving Krishna, you're never going to forget what it's like to serve Krishna. Right? So that even if you do go away, you're never actually like a karmi. So here in this part of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna that don't worry. But now, the last thing I'll say is, even though this path is very safe, even a little advancement on this path can protect us from the most dangerous type of fear. We shouldn't try to go for second best. Doesn't make sense. Even though, Prabhupada gave this example in one lecture. He says, in India, there's a certain type of medical examination procedure. And if you pass this certain set of examinations, then you get doctor or MD. And you can practice with that title, MD or whatever. But if you don't pass, then you still can practice with a different title. Right? So he was describing how still, even if you don't reach you don't pass the exam, you still get credit. You still get a reward or, recognition. Right? But it doesn't mean that you try to go into the exam trying to fail. Does that make sense? You still get credit. You still have a position. You still have a status, even by trying. But it's not that you try not to get the full marks. So, Prabhupada has guaranteed us, we can do it in one life by practice of the Bhakti Yoga system as inculcated, as exemplified by himself and the previous acharyas following the footsteps of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's take full advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement, and let's try to help as many people as possible also take advantage. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.